In my humble opinion, man has yet to devise a more satisfying form of transport than a modest gentleman's yacht, reaching along at close to hull speed through flat water. That day she drove along like this for hour after hour, as we threaded our way through the islands and rocky outcrops that litter the waters of outer Loch Carron. Us sailors soon learn to cherish moments such as this. Sunshine and warmth on a midsummer, super long, breeze-filled Highland day. The Blue Ghoster was turning out to be a wonderful sail, providing drive down low where it's needed. But Lily M has the saddest excuse for a mainsail I've ever possessed, and I confess I've had some real Lulus over the years. For a while we sailed alongside the Ida Fransden, born in Denmark in 1938, when good timber was as cheap as chips. She peeled off to Plockton, there to disgorge her windswept, intrepid day charterers into one of several excellent Plockton eateries. We had our food aboard and carried on sailing inland, counting the skerries off on the chart and admiring the lochside settlements. Very keen on their grass, these people. This is Loch Carron. It's the closest one to Plockton. It goes quite a long way inland, so we're just going to follow it up this evening and drop the hook up here somewhere. There's a little bay, sheltered from all directions. Hey up!
Welcome to Loch Carron.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Absolutely great.
See you! Being recognised by a fellow sailor happens so seldom that it always comes as a bit of a shock. It was now gone 6 in the evening, and shadows were starting to lengthen. The wind dropped away a little as we passed the ferry narrows at Stroom, with its ruined castle, once home of the silly women of Loch Carron and their strangely twisted tale. The lushness of Lochside Scotland all but defies the human eye, as it attempts to interpret 1,000 shades of green turned up to 11 by perfect Scottish evening light. We rode the last of the sea breeze on down the loch. At some stage we have to kind of dip through there. I'm not sure where. After 5 or 6 miles, we finally tucked ourselves safely behind the reassuring bulk of Slum Bay, a perfect name for a perfect place for an evening at anchor. We sat in the cockpit sipping peaty whisky while the 3-hour-long Scottish sunset slowly subsided into a quiet Hebridean twilight. The next morning, the high was still in control, and it was as calm could be. Yeah, you can turn that off. So we turned ourselves loose and drifted a while. Quite like you to put on the tablet. I enjoy travelling like this, but only when it's in the right direction. You notice things around you. Bird. We travelled for half a mile or so in company with an adolescent gull contentedly breakfasting on the semi-submerged cadaver of a tern or kittiwake or a little gull. Hard to tell at this stage of decay. It's easy to forget that the boat and the water around her are moving along quite briskly until an orange buoy comes streaming past. Eventually, the ebb brought us to the Narrows, where we decided to drop the hook for a bit of a gander ashore. The castle was never a big one, just a 3-storey tower and a courtyard, but its position at the ferry crossing Narrows gave it control of both the roads and the loch. The story of the Silly Women was 200 years in the making. The castle was built by the Earls of Ross in the 1400s. Then it was given to the Camerons, who were despised by nearly all the clans. Then the king took it from the Camerons and gave it to the belligerent MacDonalds, who fight with everybody, especially the Mackenzies, who eventually besieged the place in 1602. Among the dozen MacDonalds inside were a few of their womenfolk, whose job it was to draw water from the well and do the cooking. In an unfortunate incident, the women somehow poured well water into the gunpowder barrels, leaving the MacDonalds all but defenceless. This resulted in a bit of a tongue-lashing all round, which was overheard by the besieging Mackenzies. The MacDonalds knew the game was up, so they threw in the towel. The Mackenzies took over the castle, carefully dried the gunpowder, added some of their own, and used it to blow the place to smithereens. The story of the entirely sensible women who stopped the stupid feuding has gone down as the Silly Women of Loch Carron. There's a message here somewhere for strutting, arrogant clansmen and intelligent women pulling the strings. Oh, look, a chicken! And a cockerel. I negotiated with the boss about where she wanted to go that day. Oh, what?
I have my map. Where are we going next?
I don't know. Where do you want to go?
Maybe we'll try those Crowlin Islands. With that narrow strip in the middle.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know, Dylan. Depends which way the tide goes. Or there's a little island called Pabe, or there's a bigger island.
Let's go and look at that gap between those two islands then.
Little island? Little island.
Once through the Narrows, the calm of the morning gave way to a wonderful warm airflow coming gently in from somewhere off the Atlantic. Most sailors I know are optimists, and we happily delude ourselves into believing that almost every sailing day is as marvellous as this one. Or even worse, we convince ourselves the next one might be even better. What a marvellous sail. Sailing around the west coast today is a wonderful, tranquil, almost stress-free experience. But wind the clock back 300 years and any boat, particularly one that goes faster than yours and crewed by several men, would have represented a real threat. The waters around here were carved up into clan territories. You'd better be ready to fight or hand over your cargo should you be intercepted. These are the Crowlin Isles, and there's an anchorage between. There's 3 islands, big one, medium-sized one, and a titchy one. The narrow gut between the 2 islands is deep right up to the southern tip, where there's a small natural causeway exposed at low tide. This place is a canoeist's paradise and a lovely location for an afternoon row in Sweet Pea. The inhabitants of the Crowlins were notorious for their thieving and thuggery. It must have been tough scraping a living from these 3 tiny rocky islands, so it's hard to blame them for regarding any passing boat as an excellent source of revenue. Wonderful geology, and I'd love to tell you about it, but I've been advised that in these films I should attempt to curtail my incipient rock lust. What does it say on this one then?
Volcanic.
Yeah. I could do better light than this. The archaeologists tell us that the Crowlins were certainly inhabited 8,000 years ago, and the last residents, refuseniks who defied the landowner's orders to be shipped off to America, finally left in the 1920s. Now one of the local farmers dumps a few sheep here, where they scratch a tough existence. After leaving the Crowlins, we turned south, riding the flood and the splendid warm wind back towards a mooring and a pub meal in Plockton. Next time we take Lily M around the back of Mull, a place so beautiful, so perfect, a real joy,